Alright fellas, today in this lesson we're going to be cutting all the material and doing a little bit of math. So what you're going to need, a sheet of paper, we got a review test that I sent in, you should have that, you need a pencil. And always remember you can pause this video anytime you want to, you can rewind it, whatever you need to do. Alright, we need to go over our objectives before we get started in the lesson. First, identify. Let me get my laser out. I always have a little. There we go. Identify safe and unsafe operations using the miter saw. Alright, so during the course of this project, we use the miter saw a lot, and it's a good opportunity for us just to cover the do's and don'ts. Next, describe how to lay out half laps. We've been talking about half laps. We set up for half laps, and today we're going to be cutting them, so I want you to know how to lay them out yourself. You got different ways to cut half laps. So in our lesson we're going to be using the miter saw, but there's several different ways you can do it, so we're going to cover a few of those. Next, explain the significance of using jigs. If you know me, you know I love using jigs. I love making jigs, and they really help you out. If you got a big job to do where you're going to be doing the same procedure over and over, jigs will really help you out, and they make things more accurate. Last is comparing ways to cut rebar. You got to cut a lot of rebar, several different ways to do it. I love using the hacksaw. All right, let's get started. When you make cuts on the miter saw, sometimes you try to line it up and get it right on the line, and you just make a cut. So the best thing to do is cut it a little long to start with on purpose. Okay, still see a little bit of my line. Now when you're doing trim work, you're doing something that needs to be real accurate. When I make a line with my pencil, I want to cut half of that line off. That's pretty precise. So I left barely, you can see a little white on the other side of the line. So what I like to do, the teeth are a little bit wider than the blade. So if you want to take off a little bit, I'll leave it a little wide, slide it over to the blade. Now the teeth are a little wider, so I'm just going to let it up. You see that took just a hair off, and that's just right. I can see a little bit of line across that blade. Alright, you got a piece of wood that you just need a little bit of an angle on. So you could take the blade, pull it out here, and line it up exactly in line with that, and you can cut it, and it'll snatch it back and pinch your fingers back there behind it, maybe snatch it hard enough that it warps the arbor in your saw, and now your saw's no good. So you don't want to ever do that. What I said before, always keep it against the fence. If you got to cut an angle, then you get the right angle on your degrees, figure out what angle it is. Make a cut that way. Never this. There's a couple of important tips when cutting with a miter saw. You want to make sure you keep the piece of wood you're cutting tight against the fence, and you want to make sure you keep it on flat on the table, right? The way you do that is you'll keep your hand against it. You do what's comfortable. You can hold it like this. You can just hold it down and hold it back against the fence and make a cut. Now the miter saw will kick up a lot of dust. If you're in a shop, it'll create a lot of dust. It's good to have some type of dust collection system. Most of these tools have a fitting at the back somewhere on the side where you can hook a shop back up to it, or a bigger system. You can wear a dust mask if you don't have it. Personally, what I do, I got a shop vac I could hook up, but I don't like to have to turn it on and off all the time. So I just keep good ventilation. I usually keep me 2 or 3 fans running in the shop, one back this way pushing the dust, one at the door, 1 or 2 at the door pulling it out. So you create a little wind tunnel in the shop, and it'll help pass the dust right on out. One thing we see is they don't allow the blade to get up to full speed before they start cutting. So you want to turn the blade on, let it get up to full speed before you try to make a cut. Don't turn it on, and the second you turn it on, you're pulling it down, You want to let it get up to full speed. And just take your time to let the blade cut. You don't have to cut, they call it a chop saw, but that don't mean you got to chop it into. Now, miter saw is perfect for cross cutting. Cross cutting means you're making a cut across the grain. Say if you had to make this cut. See it? That's called what? This is cross cutting. This is what you call ripping. You could take this chop saw or this miter saw and get it right on that line and hold it real tight and try to rip that, and you might cut a couple fingers off. So don't do that. Ripping you do on the table saw. Cross cutting you do on the miter saw. Okay? So this is perfect for the cross cut. Alright. My trusting and loyal TAs always help me look out for safety issues in the shop, help correct them. Remember when you got new guys, you may have told them, things to do to make it safe, but sometimes they don't remember some things. And one thing that we will see at times, somebody new, is say if you had to cut that a little bit off, the proper way would be put it over here, hold it with this hand, and cut it. For some reason, some people, it feels natural to put it over here, hold it with this hand, and then cut it from this side like this. And I mean, when you cut, look how close. If you cutting in, oh, I just cut my arm. So never cross over. Never cross over. Always hold it with your free hand and cut with this hand. Hold it over here on this side. Safe cutting. We're going to be making some landscape timbers into raised flower beds or garden beds in this case. The first thing we want to do is make sure we got our dimensions right on our lap cut. This is what it'll look like. That'll be cut out. So to establish the measurements, this thickness right here is that line. Whatever the thickness is of your timbers, cut that line. Okay, then the depth would just simply be whatever your thickness is here, which is about 4 inches. They vary. A couple of them 3 7/8. A couple of these are 4 inches. So, but you just lay it out like that. The thickness of the board, height of the board, measure down half, and that can give you your layout. Get set up for it. We don't want to have to measure this thing at one time, so what we can do, get our blade in the right spot. I already had a little mark right there, but then you can mark it. That's where I want to slide my board up to every time I get ready to do one. Then we got to set our depth. So what we can do on this particular saw and most saws, you have a little adjustment here where I can turn this screw in and out, flip this knob down, and when that bolt hits that, let's see if you can see it. This bolt here, you adjust it, and you flip this little bar down, and then that, when you get it adjusted right, that nut hits in and won't let it go down any farther. So, see, we got it pretty close. Like we got a little too far. So then we can, if it's too far down, then I want to make this come out. That's pretty close right there. All right, so let's try that. We got 24 8-foot boards we got to cut, 22 4-foot, and 8 2-foot. Each one of them got to have a lap cut on each end. So that'll be 54 lap cuts. So it'll take a little while. All right, now I'm going to show you how we make one of these lap cuts. We made one cut. And what we'll do is just continue to ease back. Now just take your hammer, give it a good pop or two on the end. Get most of it cleaned up. Go back over to our saw. pretty fair cut there. Like I said, we're not building a cabinet, we're building a raised bed. Cut. Cut. Sometimes knot can cause a problem. But it's nothing to a problem solver. Alright, that should be enough to do one. We had one of the fans of the show to call in and want to know, what if I don't have all the tools you have? So, we're going to cover a few different ways that you can make some of the cuts. I thought I would show you how to make a jig real quick, just to mark these things out so you don't have to measure, every one. If you got a miter saw, you can just put your a mark on the fence and slide it over to it. But say you're using a circular saw, skill saw, maybe a sawzall, whatever you got, it might be handy to have a jig to lay them out with. It doesn't take but a second to save you a lot of time in the long run. I just cut a couple of little blocks here I already had, no certain length. Pull it over to the end and just mark it right where you want that cut to be. Put these together, get them marked the right length. You want to use square, you can use square. Okay, then I cut a little piece the right width to go this way. So, in other words, this time together at this point, cut it this length, cut another board this length. It's going to mark the end in case you need an end cut. You tie it together right there. Now, I need to make a mark here and here. Like, mark here, square it down. Right there. And then I need to make a mark across here. These are 4 inches. Measure down 2. Got a little mark right there already. And just right across that mark right there. We're cutting that out. We could cut it out on that side, but we don't have to. We can just mark here, here, across there. We don't have to mark all the way around, but we could. Alright, so now we got them cut. They'll go like this. And that way, after the jig's made, you just mark it out. Save a little time. We'll put it together. First thing you want to do is, say you're going to use screws, lock it together like this. You want to always pre-drill tape 2. Yep, if you pre-drill it, just goes right in. A lot better chance of it not splitting, and it pulls up a lot easier. Okay, now all we gotta do is put this on the end. Pre-drill that. Alright, we'll put our second piece in here. We already pre-drilled it. We'll line it up. And one more screw. That was pretty quick and easy. We got us a little jig now. Just stick it on. Slab it down. And mark it right there. Took this a couple minutes to build. Save you a lot of time.